April 1944, the Allies prepare for D-Day, here in Dorset, England. In France, the Nazis bolster their fortifications along the Normandy coastline. More than 7,000 vessels and 150,000 Allied troops approach the beaches. They're met by a terrifying wall of Nazi defenses in the largest amphibious invasion in history. In this series, we investigate the most extraordinary events of World War II from a brand new perspective. Matching rarely seen archive film, photography from the front line, and remarkable aerial reconnaissance images to their original locations. We reconstruct the crucial battles. Daring bombing raids and deadly terror weapons that changed the course of history. Soaring over the battlefields, we reveal the secrets of World War II from above. The 30th of June, 1943. An Allied reconnaissance plane approaches Normandy in northern France. It's flying a top-secret mission to photograph Nazi defenses along this 80-kilometer stretch of coastline. The Allied forces are planning a vast invasion here to open a new front on mainland Europe. The road to D-Day has begun. As they fly along the Normandy coast, the reconnaissance plane takes this photo. It shows the exact locations of German gun positions under construction. They will form part of a line of coastal defenses known as the Atlantic Wall. In June 1943, the Nazis and Axis powers occupy the majority of mainland Europe. Hitler knows a counteroffensive is inevitable. So he instructs his commanders to build an impenetrable wall of defenses from the French border with Spain, over 5,000 kilometers long, all the way to the northern tip of Norway. The Allies fly thousands of reconnaissance sorties along the Atlantic Wall to map out the German positions and try to locate any weak spots. Near the town of Merville in northern France, they take this photo in early 1944, which shows an area of intense activity. From above, it looks innocuous. 4 mounds of earth covered in grass. But a closer look reveals a secret German gun complex known as a battery. The battery is home to 4 100mm howitzer guns. To protect each gun, German engineers build a huge steel-reinforced concrete cover over them, called a casemate, and bury them beneath hundreds of tons of soil. The howitzers have a range of almost 8.5 kilometers. They provide a formidable defense for a long stretch of the Normandy coast and the nearby port. Local historian Gert van den Bogart investigates the battery to unlock the secrets of its construction.
With the intensification of the Atlantic Wall construction, Merville saw work increase here to try and protect the guns.
130 soldiers man the battery, which is designed to be impenetrable, both from aerial bombardment and ground assault.
So we're inside the personnel bunker here. You can clearly see where they slept. There's still parts of the bunk beds. Definitely not an ideal place if you were claustrophobic. Right here you would peek out and see the entrance and could spot anyone coming in. The only other way to get out was right through there, the escape hatch. You could try and get an idea of what was going on outside through the periscope, especially if the enemy was up on top of the bunker.
Hitler has recently appointed Field Marshal Rommel as the Inspector General of Nazi defenses in the West. On the 6th of March 1944, he visits Merville for the first time and finds that only 2 of the main casemates have been completed.
In March, Rommel was quite unpleased with the progress that had been made here at Merville, and he wanted to speed up the work and really pushed his local commanders. Young men were actually requisitioned to come and work here around the clock to try and get things ready.
These young men are made to pour concrete day and night under floodlights to complete the remaining casemates. Along with the 4 main howitzers, the Germans install an anti-aircraft gun and a machine gun, and dig trenches to connect the main buildings. They also dig a 100-meter-long anti-tank ditch to the northeast and surround the battery with 2 rings of barbed wire and sprawling minefields. The Germans have 2 more machine gun positions to the east and to the south. Right along the Atlantic Wall, there's a vast array of heavy-duty weaponry. It's bolstered by the latest military technology, like radar, and protected by vast quantities of reinforced concrete. Combined, they form a formidable defensive front. But it is one the Allies must penetrate. On the other side of the Channel, the Allied forces are preparing for the D-Day invasion right across Britain. The generals are meticulously planning every minute detail. Military equipment and tens of thousands of troops are arriving from the US. And paratroopers practice large-scale drops under the watchful eyes of Winston Churchill and General Eisenhower. One of the biggest and most important training exercises will take place on the south coast of Dorset. Its beaches are very similar to those in Normandy, making it the ideal arena for trial runs for D-Day. The surrounding area is also largely unpopulated, so the land can be cleared for live ammunition training and to ensure the exercises remain top secret. In 1944, one of the key innovations that needs to be tested here is the duplex drive, or DD tank. For the landings, tanks will be a vital part of the Allied arsenal. But getting them onto the beaches will be no mean feat. Pioneering British engineers have spent months designing and building this ingenious hybrid war machine. It's a tank that floats in water. John Pearson is the owner of this DD tank. It's the last of its kind in the world.
I personally can't imagine how the inventor of the DD ever managed to convince people that you could put a canvas bag around a tank and put it in the sea and it would float. The most important part of it being amphibious is the propeller, which goes into and out of gear like that and steers like an outboard motor. The other major part of the flotation equipment is the skirt, which is inflated with compressed air. And when these become rigid, it lifts the top frame up and it floats with the tank completely below the water surface. And so when it's afloat, it looks just like a rubber boat. It is surprising that the crews could be persuaded to be launched at sea, to be honest. It's not something I would do. I don't mind restoring it, I don't mind driving it, I don't mind playing with it. But the idea of consigning it to the sea with me inside it, forget it, I wouldn't do it. They're braver than me.
The plan is for amphibious tanks like this to be the first to land on the Normandy beaches. They have to be tested. Exercise Smash is a full-scale rehearsal for D-Day, right here in Studland Bay. Complete with destroyers firing shells and infantry arriving on landing craft. Trooper Albert Price is 18 years old and is on board one of the DD tanks. Up to this point, his only training has been on inland lakes.
We knew we were being trained for D-Day as a special force, but it was all very hush-hush. The one thing they didn't tell us was that floating around on a lake and floating around on the sea are two entirely different things.
A landing craft transports Albert's tank, along with 18 others, to the mouth of the bay. They launch the DD tanks 4.5 kilometers from the beach.
You always feel vulnerable in that sort of conveyance. It doesn't look very sturdy at the best of times. When you're just in a canvas box and you're seeing heavy waves lifting you up, it's a bit frightening.
During Exercise Smash, the weather continues to deteriorate. The crews fight to keep control of their unsteady vessels.
In my case, there was suddenly a loud crash and we ended up on top of a rock protruding out from the seabed.
Albert's tank is one of 6 that are overwhelmed by the waves and sink during the exercise. 6 men drown. It's a massive setback for the Allied commanders. High above the bay at Fort Henry, Supreme Commander General Eisenhower, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and King George VI visit to witness the training firsthand. They've learned costly but valuable lessons during this exercise. It won't be long before these troops are coming ashore under fire from German guns. D-Day is less than 2 months away. For the invasion, the Allied commanders have split the target landing sites into 5 individually named beaches. The American divisions will lead the landings on the beaches to the west, codenamed Utah, and Omaha. The British and Canadians will attack on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches to the east. The planners are most worried about Omaha Beach. Viewing from above reveals why. Steep bluffs surround Omaha Beach. They give the German guns a formidable vantage point. Local resident Magali Desken explores one of the Nazi fortifications high above the eastern end of the beach.
What's absolutely impressive from here is that you are able to understand the topography of Omaha Beach. The German could definitely take advantage of the high ground. Those bluffs are about 100 feet high. From here, you can see all the way to the west end of Omaha Beach. You kind of feel in an amphitheater.
This German complex includes a maze of zigzagging trenches. Some of the trenches lead into concealed gun positions called Tobruk's. They're encased in concrete and are designed to house mortars or machine guns.
You can see them almost like a concrete foxhole because it's going to give some protection to the soldiers and to the machine gun itself. And it gives them a complete rotation, a 360-degree rotation. The only way for this position to be captured will be either a bomb being dropped just here or being captured by the infantry.
But to get here, approaching Allied infantry must first survive the beaches below.
The Germans really focused their defense strategy on defending the beach. That's where they are concentrating most of their troops, to really make their defenses as efficient as possible.
Field Marshal Rommel has instructed his troops to cover all the beaches with deadly obstacles. These include vertical log posts with explosive mines mounted on top, nicknamed Rommel's asparagus, log ramps rising over 2 meters tall, and anti-tank steel frames called Belgian gates. Lines of crossed steel beams, known as hedgehogs, stretch as far as the eye can see.
Picture the beach with a couple of thousands of obstacles, and all over the Normandy coast, it's more than 10,000 of them. Stopping the tanks right here on the beach is a way to stop any infantry. Without the support of the tanks, without the support of the artillery, the progression won't be possible inland.
Hitler himself is confident that Rommel's ferocious defences will ward off Churchill and the Allies and prevent them opening a new front.
Wenn Herr Churchill sagt, das wollen wir den Deutschen jetzt überlassen, nachzugrübeln in ihrer Angst, wo wir sie und wann wir sie öffnen. Ich kann Ihnen nur sagen, Herr Churchill, ganz gleich, wo er sich aussucht. Er kann überall vom Glück reden, wenn er 9 Stunden am Land bleibt. Angst haben Sie mir noch nie eingejagt.
Despite his bravado, Hitler has no idea when or where the Allies will strike. The Nazi commanders continue to reinforce the defences right along the Atlantic Wall. In Normandy, one of the most fearsome fortifications is Pointe du Hoc. From above, it's clear why the peninsula is such a crucial strategic position. Near vertical cliffs, 30 meters tall, make it a daunting target for any military units trying to launch an attack from the sea below. The Germans have excavated 6 open concrete pits. Each pit houses a 155mm caliber gun. They captured these huge cannons from the French when they invaded the region. Now the weapons have been turned against the Allies to help ward off the inevitable counterattack. The site superintendent, Scott Desjardins, investigates what makes Pointe du Hoc such a potent defensive position.
Pointe du Hoc is a perfect position to put large caliber guns because they have free range on both their left and right. There's no obstructions at all. So it's easy to understand why the Germans would have put these firing positions here at the point. This is one of the actual gun emplacements. The piece of steel there would have been where the pinion of the cannon would have been. And from there it's turned left and right to whatever deflection they need to hit a target. Their weaponry here was unique. They have an incredible range and they're incredibly accurate, which makes them incredibly dangerous. They are really going to threaten our invasion if we don't make sure these guns are out of commission.
The 6 155mm guns have a range of almost 20 kilometers. They can fire across the entirety of both Utah and Omaha Beach. They also pose a serious threat to any approaching Allied warships. So, on the 5th of April 1944, a group of A-20 Havoc bombers from the 9th Air Force Division target the clifftop guns at Pointe du Hoc. The bombing continues for weeks, turning the peninsula into a moonscape.
This one was done by aerial bombardment, and it's a big one. This is one of the biggest craters on the site. You could easily fit a home here. You can imagine that with the destruction that was caused here, that any German soldier within 300 meters of here becomes quickly non-combat ineffective. His insides are rattled. There's absolutely no doubt that it took physical and mental deterioration on the German soldier himself. It was terrible for morale. I would not have wanted to have been a German soldier here in the month of April or May. I imagine that life was pretty miserable.
The relentless bombing severely damages 3 of the guns, forcing the Germans to move the others to a less vulnerable position inland. 50 kilometers along the coast, the Allies also carry out 18 bombing raids on the Merville Battery during April and May, leaving huge craters in the aftermath. But the bombs have failed to cause any major damage to the 4 howitzer guns. The concrete casemates have done their job. This battery remains a serious threat to the Allied invasion. As D-Day approaches, tens of thousands of Allied troops make their way to ports along the south coast of England. In the harbours and along the quays, nearly 500,000 troops and 144,000 vehicles are loading onto ships bound for Normandy. Infantry arrive from nearby camps. They board ships and landing craft. Some of the troops embarking here are bound for Omaha Beach. They will cross the Channel to France overnight. So most of the first wave set off on the 5th of June. Late on the same day, at airfields across England, over 18,000 paratroopers and glider-borne infantry prepare to depart to join the invasion. Along with their rifles, they load up with extra rations, ammunition, and grenades. Some even pack carrier pigeons so they can send progress reports back across the Channel. Troops load heavy artillery, including anti-tank guns, into gliders. These will be towed by aircraft across the Channel and released near the coast of Normandy. At RAF Greenham Common, Supreme Commander of the Allied forces on D-Day, General Eisenhower, arrives to give his orders of the day.
Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck.
Many of these paratroopers will cross the Channel to the Normandy beaches on C-47 Dakotas. On board one of the planes is Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway, British commander of the 9th Parachute Battalion.
We took off at about 10:30 p.m. and I walked down the aircraft. I spoke to all the aircrew. I had taken a bottle of whiskey on board, so we all had a drink there and I passed it round.
Otway's view from above gives him a unique glimpse of the scale of D-Day.
And I actually stood in the door of my aircraft, and it was a most fantastic sight. I could see all the ships, and they seemed to be already streaming towards the French coast.
The 9th Battalion's primary objective is to destroy the Nazi-controlled Merville Battery, which threatens the troops landing on Sword Beach. Each group of paratroopers has a carefully planned drop zone. Otway's battalion is aiming for Drop Zone V, a few kilometers southeast of Merville. Field Marshal Rommel has ordered many of the surrounding fields to be flooded as an extra deterrent, so it's essential that the paratroopers hit their targets. But navigating at night is extremely challenging. And as Otway's Dakota approaches the French coast, they are spotted by the German defenses.
Quite suddenly, anti-aircraft fire, large and small, opened up on us. And I was waiting to jump, and there was an explosion.
Otway is propelled out of his plane, as thousands of other paratroopers also make their descent near Merville.
It was a completely chaotic. Aircraft going in all directions, except the right ones, and all levels except the right ones.
Amidst the chaos, most of the paratroopers miss their targets. Many land in Rommel's flooded fields and drown, unable to escape under the weight of all their soaking wet kit. Of the 750 men in Otway's battalion, only 150 make it to the rendezvous point.
The decision was, do I go on with 150 or do I pack it in? But I didn't hesitate. I said we must go on.
A Pathfinder group, sent in advance, has cut a couple of openings in the battery's outer ring of barbed wire and cleared 2 routes through the minefield. A diversionary attack heads to the entrance of the battery. At 4:30 a.m., Otway sends the primary attack groups through the 2 gaps created by the Pathfinders.
The attack went in, and there was a lot of machine gun fire coming from the Germans from both flanks. The 4 parties attacked the casements. There was some very severe hand-to-hand fighting.
By 5 a.m. on the 6th of June, the 9th Battalion has completely occupied the battery.
Out of the 150 men that we went in with, all ranks, were only 75 of us left standing on our feet. The others had been killed or wounded. It was rather horrible.
Despite the losses, Otway is able to send a success signal.
My signal officer had got a carrier pigeon, and he tied a victory message around its leg and sent it off, and it arrived back at Whitehall that morning.
Shortly after the 9th Battalion take the Merville Battery, the Allied navies begin their bombardment on the German defences. Almost 7,000 vessels approach the north coast of France, including over 1,200 warships. Ahead of the landings, minesweepers have cleared channels to allow the warships to safely move into position. The larger ships have specific targets that each threaten the landing beaches. At 5:23 a.m., the Allied navies open fire. One of the flagships in the British fleet is HMS Belfast. Viewing from above gives a unique perspective of this mighty warship. The vessel is almost 200 meters long. Its primary weapons are 2 triple turrets positioned at either end that have a range of over 22 kilometers. It's also armed with a variety of anti-aircraft guns for defense and additional double-gun turrets along each deck. They combine to create a formidable and lethal assault weapon. Lead curator Robert Rumble studies the ferocious arsenal of HMS Belfast.
The firepower offered by large warships to smash German gun emplacements, bunkers, concrete positions was key to softening up the enemy positions.
The shells raining down on the beaches are stored in the heart of HMS Belfast. A fortified steel cylinder protects a cavernous munitions room beneath each turret. Each room can hold up to 1,000 shells, but every one has to be loaded by hand.
A sailor would have taken a shell, and it's worth remembering that these weigh over 50 kilos, so they're incredibly heavy, would have loaded them by hand into these hoists, and then the shell would have gone up the hoist all the way to the turret itself, where the turret crew would have been ready to take them and load them into the guns.
4 decks above, inside the turret towers, the crews can load and launch 8 shells a minute from each gun.
So load it. The gun would be brought to the horizontal, breech open, the loading tray brought over, shell rammed up, powder bag dropped in behind it, 30 pounds of cordite, and that would be rammed up as well. Breech closed. Vent tube into the small breech at the back here, and that closed as well. And then the gun would be brought up to correct elevation, ready for firing.
At 5:27 a.m. on the 6th of June, HMS Belfast fires all its main guns on the Normandy coast, launching 96 shells a minute.
These guns were what Belfast was all about. The whole ship shook through the energy of all 12 guns firing at the same time. The sound and the flash of the explosion out through the barrels was tremendous.
After 2 hours of the Allied warships battering their German targets, the amphibious landings begin. On the British and Canadian beaches, each brigade launches the duplex drive tanks first. Behind them, landing craft packed with specialized assault vehicles. Then the infantry, traveling on board multiple waves of smaller landing craft. Almost 25,000 British soldiers target Gold Beach. More than 21,000 Canadians approach Juno. And a further 28,000 British troops zone in on Sword. Combined with the US forces landing on Utah and Omaha, over 130,000 Allied soldiers prepare to disembark, with the warships continuing to provide support. They enter a maelstrom of German shells and bullets. Chaos ensues. Despite the carnage, wave upon wave of infantry arrive on the shoreline behind the tanks. On Gold Beach, the British commanders have learnt their lessons from Exercise Smash. Given the rough seas, they only launch the DD tanks just off the beaches. Most successfully land and provide destructive and heavily armored support for the infantry. 20 kilometers down the coast, it's a different story on Omaha. The Americans have launched their DD tanks over 4.5 kilometers off the coast, and in the rough seas, most have sunk. This leaves the infantry exposed as they land on the beach in the most vulnerable position. The waterline. As they disembark the landing craft, they are sitting ducks for the German guns, embedded high on the bluffs. On the 6th of June 1944, most of the German guns are not aiming at the Allied navies out at sea. They are pointing directly along the Normandy beaches. Here at Omaha, the gunners have easy prey. More than 34,000 American soldiers are disembarking on this short stretch of sand. With more German guns at the other end of Omaha, the Allied troops are charging into a deadly web of defensive crossfire. One US soldier who makes it onto the beach in the first wave is Harley Reynolds. The main message from his training is clear.
You've got to get off the beach to be safe. You're going to be killed on that beach. Get the hell off of it. When our boat hit land, we had approximately 300 yards yet to go to the shingle bank. It was the only protection that you had at all on that beach behind that shingle. I had 80 pounds of equipment on me. I ran it, I didn't miss a step. Never moved so fast in my life. I had bullets come so close to me, I could feel the wind from it. You could hear the bullets zipping by. You could hear them hit the men alongside of you. The terrible sound to hear a bullet hit a man. I can remember thinking on that beach, no one was going to survive it. My feeling was that we were being sacrificed.
Wave after wave of infantry arrive in Omaha's killing zone. The Americans suffer 2,500 casualties. Eventually, enough survivors make it off the beaches and up the bluffs. They outflank the German positions. The improving morning light allows Allied warships to approach the beach and target the bunkers housing the big guns. Ultimately, the sheer scale of the Allied invasion is too much for the German defenses. D-Day is a huge success. Over the coming days, tens of thousands of Allied soldiers begin to progress inland. In most of the coastal villages, they are welcomed as liberators. Many Germans surrender. Some do not. D-Day is a major turning point in the war. Once more, the Allies have a foothold in mainland Europe. But this victory has come at a heavy cost. There are at least 10,000 Allied casualties, with more than 4,000 confirmed dead. Thousands of civilians and Germans have also lost their lives. And a long road to Berlin lies ahead.